And good morning. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very exciting segment. Well, this is your live stream for the second day of December 2021, streaming live to you directly from the sunny Brisbane today. Yes, I've mentioned sunny. After all that right now, at this point in time, looking out the window, it is just amazing, sunny and 26 degrees. Of course, after the rain, with this sunshine, humidity will rise as the day moves along. Well, once again, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining in on the show. In this show today, we will have all the latest updates, plus the daily India report with Ankita. And at 10 a.m., we will have the weekly travel updates with Tanvi Goyal of Oz India Travels. A very exciting segment, that one, because we are coming onto the holidays. Hey, this is the second day of December. So what does it mean to you and your holiday plans? Where can you go? What can you do? What can you safely do? And what is worth the risk? We'll find out all of those at 10 a.m. with Tanvi Goyal of Oz India Travel when we do the weekly travel updates, and it will be the episode number 60 today. Well, right now, we are living in a world which is plagued at this point in time by the pandemic COVID-19 with its different variants. But what happened 20 years ago, and we are still living with that? Let's find out.
The mRNA technology that has saved millions of lives during the COVID pandemic was first developed by scientists searching for an HIV vaccine. Now Moderna is about to begin phase 1 human trials of an mRNA vaccine for HIV.
The goal is to really elicit those infection-blocking vaccines at a high level and ones that are able to block infection with genetically diverse HIV variants.
Despite the widespread rollout of life-saving antiretroviral treatments, the need for both a cure and a vaccine for HIV is as urgent as ever. Globally, 35 million people have died of AIDS, and last year 1.5 million people were newly infected, mostly in poor countries. The current pandemic has derailed efforts to prevent and treat HIV.
We saw the numbers of people coming forward for testing decreasing, the number of people picking up prevention tools such as condoms and PrEP decreasing.
In Australia, pathologists are also reporting a drop in HIV testing.
Nationally, we've seen about a 30 to 40% drop in HIV testing during the pandemic.
The long-term effect of this will only become apparent in the next few years. But global leaders in HIV remain hopeful.
I don't think we can eradicate it, but I think by 2030 that we could get it out of the pandemic phase and bring a level of control to it.
And right now, controlling HIV is more important than ever. Madeline Morris, ABC News.
Well, so isn't that interesting that HIV there and also linked with the COVID-19. So the technology that's been developed then could be put to use in this current time. So that is good. So as we know that right now people are all talking about what's going to happen. Look, people have adapted to the new way of life. And it means it's not the same as what it was before. Maybe it was overinflated. Maybe we just overdid everything. And now this is the level where we need to be. And of course, the safety and the big thing to come out of is the concern about hygiene, personal hygiene and everything. People are more aware. Even getting in the lift or, in public transport, and, people before did not care willy-nilly wherever they wanted to sit and didn't worry about anything else. Now people are more conscious. Who's sitting next to them, what's happening, and they're taking their own precautionary measures, which is good to see. Well, right now, we did yesterday go into the housing market and looked at that report of housing industry with Usa Chandra, and of course ST joined in with that affordable and livable report of the second part of this year. Well, here's a report to say, are the houses nearly to the top of the range, or is it going to peak out?
This young family lives in Australia's least affordable rental market. They're priced out of buying their own home.
The emotional toll and side of it is really what made us decide to stop looking for now.
Property prices across the country have grown 22% in a year. Hobart's had the biggest annual growth, followed by Sydney and Brisbane, and values in the regions have outpaced those in capital cities. When the pandemic hit last year, property values were tipped to fall by 20%. Instead,
annual appreciation in housing values that we've seen is the highest 12-month growth rate since 1989, and rental values have also grown since their highest levels since the early 2000s, so sitting about 9% higher.
The number of new loans being taken out by first-home buyers has fallen by 11%, while the amount borrowed by them is up 1%. Instead, more of them are purchasing an investment property, with 6.8% rent vesting in 2021 compared to 4.5% the previous year. Overall, the value of investor mortgages rose 83%.
First home buyers started with a bang with a record high number of first home buyer loans. However, that has slipped away month after month.
Record low mortgage rates below 2% have fuelled the property frenzy. But the cheap money is coming to an end. The RBA has signalled it could lift the cash rate as early as 2023. Banks have already started hiking fixed rates, while cutting variable rates to attract new customers.
Banks are focused on gradually nudging up rates, and so borrowers need to be prepared to pay more.
The pace of growth in the housing market is slowing due to rising mortgage rates, stricter lending rules and more properties up for sale. But the big banks are still tipping price rises of between 6 and 8% in 2022 before values drop in 2023. CBA is forecasting the steepest fall of 10%. Analysts warn that if a new COVID variant like Omicron were to kick off, house prices would continue to grow in double digits.
The Reserve Bank of Australia would hold fire on any planned interest rate rises, and potentially the financial regulator, APRA, would also hold fire on any additional intervention to restrict credit in the housing market.
In Brisbane,
with the tightening of the industry and tightening of the finance into the housing market, the prices mentioned. So it is interesting that when the pandemic hit, it was predicted that the house prices would go down. In fact, it went the other way. Right now, with Omicron being announced, it is interesting to see what might happen. The big banks have already started nudging and moving their rates up a bit. Well, overall, Australia has suffered a large drop in the last quarter. Here's that report.
The Australian economy is strong and is in good shape.
It feels a lifetime ago that the quarterly report card on the state of the economy seemed like a straightforward piece of good news for a treasurer to deliver. Since then, Australians have been on a roller coaster ride, not just on a wildly careering economy, but on political messaging too.
Less than 100 days ago, our nation was on the edge of an economic cliff.
The highest quarterly growth since 1976. Talk about a V-shaped recovery.
The Australian economy is roaring back.
And as a federal election has loomed ever closer, it's been a challenge for a government which wants to campaign for re-election on its economic record to find its line and length on its economic messaging too.
You can see that very strong V-shaped recovery, obviously now starting to deviate a little bit from that trajectory.
Today's news that the Australian economy had once again contracted in the September quarter wasn't a surprise, given lockdowns in our largest states, and most economists think things have already improved since then. But the numbers do once again put the government's economic management under scrutiny. It is, after all, the third largest contraction in our history, and the question remains about whether that could have been avoided, along with the protracted lockdowns in New South Wales, Victoria and the ACT, if the government had managed the vaccine program better.
Today's national accounts confirm the enormous economic cost of lockdowns.
This is a story of a mismanaged pandemic and a mismanaged economy. Of the 28 countries from the OECD which have reported their September quarter figures, Australia ranks dead last.
If we step away from the political noise, what's actually been going on? The economy had been tracking along at relatively low levels of growth for years before the pandemic. The massive crash came in the June quarter last year before a rebound, and now another dip. The dip mainly came about because of plunging household spending on the East Coast, but its effect was partly cushioned by increased spending in the public sector and a booming trade surplus. That's given economists reason to be optimistic that, with lockdowns lifted, the economy is bouncing back even stronger as the year ends.
The big question now is about business investment, and we know that the things that stimulate business investment is certainty, and certainty about Australia's economic conditions into the future, and also access to skills. We know from businesses that that's really what will make the difference between having some of their projects go ahead versus slowing down on them.
Business confidence has been buffeted badly by 2 years of pandemic. Whether it can recover amid new COVID strains and with the uncertainties of a looming federal election will be the big question answered over the next few months. And, in turn, that will have big ramifications for the way voters perceive the government on polling day.
Yes, it will. And so it's a very good report there covering up on all those situations, and the economy is dependent upon confidence. And, with lack of confidence in any industry, the economy will suffer. Well, right now, there's a lot of political upheaval going on everywhere. Let's take a look at Northern Territories.
The Northern Territory government's vaccination mandate has triggered heated protests in recent weeks. And now, with Parliament's public gallery closed for security reasons, the Chief Minister was asked if any politicians have been the subject of death threats.
Yeah, I have, on a number of occasions, not just me, my family. I've been told my kid will be put in the grave.
The emotional toll of his family's security concerns clear to see. After a long and painful silence, the Chief Minister eventually gathered his composure.
We have a job, and we'll do our job.
Police say they're treating the matter very seriously and have confirmed a number of other politicians have also been the subject of threats.
There's multiple investigations that we're undertaking and will continue to do so. Once we meet the criminal benchmark, you can be very reassured that we will take action.
Why are you forcing this?
The opposition leader, who's had her own run-ins with people opposed to vaccinations, says no one in her party has been the target of threats.
It's really important when people are expressing their views as strongly as they may wish to express them, that doesn't descend into violence, threats and intimidation.
It's not just politicians copping the anti-vax vitriol. When protesters played the last post at the Darwin Cenotaph on the weekend, local veteran Sam Weston shared his thoughts on social media, saying, "Please leave the last post for the military. Don't compare your cause with that of the freedom we fought for." Ever since, the cafe owner has been inundated with angry responses.
It got a bit abusive, then it went through the night, and the next day I woke up and I had people giving me bad reviews for my business.
A war of words with real-life impacts. Jono Gibson.
With real-life impact, yes, and of course, I do believe that we should respect that last post and keep it for those kind of situations and not play in public gatherings like that. When everyone's got a right to protest, of course, you have freedom of speech and everyone has got a right to voice their opinion. But do so in the manner and not threaten anyone. Politicians are there doing their job, what they have been elected to do. Well, of course, if they don't, they are removed from the office, and there are due processes which need to be followed. And but violent threats and those kind of low things should not be tolerated. That is so un-Australian to do that. Of course, protest is okay because people have their own opinions. That's fine. You put forward your opinion, but in the prescribed manner. Well, right now, of course, few months back, and we've been following this story for a while, Christian Porter, and what is going to be happening with his political career. As per his comments, he's not going to recontest.
Christmas cheer with a bipartisan touch.
Here we go.
But not entirely without political message. Anthony Albanese with some climate virtuous shopping.
This is a time where families come together.
And with the parliamentary year coming to an end, so are some careers. Christian Porter succumbing to political gravity.
It just did not happen.
Once considered a future Prime Minister, the former Attorney-General stepping away from politics after facing the gravest of allegations.
But I can say categorically that what has been put in various forms, in allegations, simply did not happen.
Mr Porter identified himself as the Cabinet Minister accused of a decades-old rape by a woman who took her own life before her story was made public. Strenuously denying the allegation, he sued the ABC for defamation before discontinuing the case.
My lawyers, whilst they are very good, are very, very expensive.
Legal fees paid in part by mystery donors. His refusal to identify supporters seeing him shift to the backbench.
Taking $1 million in secret donations is completely and utterly unacceptable.
In a statement on his Facebook page, Christian Porter said that while he'd experienced more of the harshness of modern politics than most, he had no regrets. But he did offer this about modern politics. Perhaps the only certainty now is that there appears to be no limit to what some will say or allege or do to gain an advantage over a perceived enemy.
Obviously, there are things that have happened.
Political advantage and, the level that people would go to, that's another matter. Well, one of the other matters that is of interest to our multicultural community is the Religious Vilification Act. And as it has been put forward, there are problems which could be forthcoming. Here's that report.
60% of Australians have a religious belief, and now the Morrison government is seeking to give them greater protections.
In our pluralistic society, faith is something which is very core to many people, and many people reflect that.
7,817,247. The Religious Discrimination Bill came about in the wake of the same-sex marriage vote in 2017. Faced with the Conservative backlash, the Turnbull government agreed to have protections for religious communities reviewed. And now, several drafts later, the bill is finally before the federal parliament.
People should not be cancelled or persecuted or vilified because their beliefs are different from someone else's.
The centrepiece of the bill is the right to make a statement of belief.
Essentially what a statement of belief is a written or oral communication of somebody's religious beliefs, provided that they reasonably believe that those beliefs are in accordance with a religion or religious doctrine.
You can make a statement of belief up to a point. It can't be malicious or threaten, intimidate, harass or vilify a person or group.
The Australian Christian Lobby have given this a tick, but we think that it could have gone further.
But those in the LGBTI community argue this statement of belief will protect those who discriminate against them.
This bill threatens to embolden people to just practice meanness in the community.
Legal experts say those making a statement of belief could not be sued for discrimination.
Those comments can be cloaked as a belief, and the people who are so deeply distressed or humiliated won't have any action available to them. So it indeed provides a cloak or protection for those who want to express religious statements of belief.
In 2019, rugby star Israel Folau caused a furore by posting beliefs against homosexuals and others on his social media. He was sacked by Rugby Australia for breaching the player code of conduct. The bill does not include the so-called Folau clause, which would have provided greater protections to people of faith against employers.
The Folau clause was really giving everyday Australians protection for freedom of speech outside the workplace. So that has been dropped. Employers do not own employees, and so that shouldn't be the case. So we will still be advocating for a clause that actually gives Australians the right to speak about their faith outside of the workplace in a reasonable manner.
But according to some legal experts, the new law would have made Folau's case stronger.
Under the new Act, it would have been open for Mr Folau to argue that he had been subjected to less favourable treatment due to his religious beliefs and activities.
The bill would also strengthen the right of religious schools to hire staff who reflect their beliefs.
We believe that religious schools should be able to hire right across the board people who adhere to their ethos. And that would be the same for any political party or, imagine Greenpeace, for instance, hiring somebody who secretly wanted to kill the whales. They wouldn't.
The bill doesn't change the existing right of religious schools to sack teachers or expel students because of their sexuality. Last year, gay Christian minister Karen Pack claimed she was sacked by a Baptist college because of the school's policy against same-sex marriage. The college disputes this and says she left on her own accord.
The Religious Vilification Act, and we will follow that story up and see how it goes. Now, there has been lots of commentaries on that happening worldwide. There have been lots of virtual consultations, whether they, those consultations, whether they are a media exercise or something actually happens, or is it just a toothless tiger? Time will tell. Right now it's time to go to our daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India report that brings you glimpses of the changing India and the growing engagement of the Indian diaspora with India. In our first story, Indian government begins implementation of new rules for international arriving passengers on 1st December. Bangladesh has been removed from at-risk countries list. With the threat of the highly transmissible Omicron variant of SARS-CoV-2 looming large, the Government of India's new guidelines for international travellers has kicked in starting December 1st. First detected in the country of Botswana in Africa and later termed a variant of concern by the World Health Organization, confirmed cases of Omicron have been found in at least 14 countries to date. Many countries have imposed travel bans on visitors from South Africa and southern parts of African continent and some other countries to curb the spread of the new variant. Just when India was to open fully for foreign tourists beginning 15th December, Omicron variant concern has led India to revise guidelines for international travellers. Starting 1st December, all international travellers arriving in India will be required to fill a self-declaration form and share a copy of their negative RT-PCR test reports with the airlines before boarding the aircraft. For those with a travel history of countries other than the ones listed as at-risk countries, 2% of such travellers will be subjected to random COVID-19 testing upon arrival. The guidelines also specify stringent screening for travellers entering India from any of 12 at-risk countries. These include the UK, South Africa, Brazil, Botswana, China, Mauritius, New Zealand, Zimbabwe, Singapore, Hong Kong and Israel. Bangladesh has been removed from this list of at-risk countries. It will be now mandatory for those travelling from at-risk countries to submit details of travel history dating back 14 days prior to the date of arrival, in addition to a negative RT-PCR report. These details can be uploaded to the Air Suvidha portal. Such travellers will also have to undergo COVID-19 testing upon arrival and wait for the results at the airport itself. If found negative for the infection, the travellers will have to observe home quarantine for a minimum of 7 days, followed by another COVID-19 test on the 8th day. Travellers who test positive upon arrival will be escorted to a separate isolation facility. Their samples will be sent for genome sequencing as they undergo treatment. India extends COVID containment measures till December 31st amid concerns over Omicron variant. India extended the nationwide COVID-19 containment measures till December 31st in view of the emergence of a highly mutant COVID-19 variant Omicron and asked the states to be vigilant. Home Secretary Ajay Bhalla has asked states and union territories to strictly adhere to the November 25th advisory issued by the Union Health Ministry, recommending rigorous screening and testing of all international travellers. Contacts of the international travellers will be closely tracked and tested as per the Health Ministry guidelines, and the samples of travellers turning positive sent to the designated genome sequencing laboratories promptly, as per the Indian SARS-CoV-2 Genomics Consortium guidance document. State surveillance officers must also establish close coordination with their designated or tagged genome sequencing laboratories for expediting results of genomic analysis, and the states and union territories should immediately undertake necessary public health measures in case of the presence of variants of concern. Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan also held a review meeting with states and union territories and advised them to ramp up testing for early identification and management of cases. In the last week of November, India logged 6,990 new coronavirus infections, the lowest in 551 days, and the total tally of COVID-19 cases is now 34,587,822. Active cases have declined to 100,543, the lowest in 546 days. Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman says cryptocurrency is a risky area and a bill will be tabled soon in Parliament to deal with it. Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that the government would soon introduce a bill in Parliament to deal with cryptocurrency. The Cabinet of Ministers will approve it soon. Speaking at the chaotic proceedings of the Rajya Sabha during Parliament's winter session, the minister said that cryptocurrency is a risky area which does not have a complete regulatory framework. The minister's statement came during question hour when Bihar's BJP MP Sushil Kumar Modi asked if the government was planning to ban misleading advertisements for the time being. Modi pointed out that last time too, the cryptocurrency regulation bill was mentioned in the bulletin, but it was not introduced. Regarding the regulation of non-fungible tokens, Sitharaman said that it was still being discussed by the government. NFTs are digital tokens representing a wide range of one-of-a-kind tangible items, from a JPEG file, music file, video clip to anything else that can be stored digitally. The hype surrounding cryptocurrency has also led to a boom for the NFT market around the globe. However, the Indian Finance Minister said that to avoid undesirable activities, crypto trades are being closely monitored. The Cryptocurrency and Regulation of Official Digital Currency Bill 2021 is among 26 new bills on the government's agenda for the winter session of Parliament, which seeks to create a facilitative framework for the creation of the official digital currency to be issued by the RBI. The bill is particularly important as it seeks to prohibit all private cryptocurrencies in India and allows for certain exceptions to promote the underlying technology of cryptocurrency and its uses. Parliament stalled as Rajya Sabha chairman refuses to revoke the suspension of 12 members of Parliament. A confrontation over the suspension of 12 Rajya Sabha members of Parliament from the opposition parties stalled the proceedings of the winter session of India's Parliament on the second day on 30th November. Rajya Sabha chairperson, also the Vice President of India, M. Venkaiah Naidu, refused to reconsider his decision. Naidu criticized the 12 suspended MPs, saying that their behaviour in the upper house during the monsoon session was an act of sacrilege, as the Parliament is the temple of democracy. He defended the decision to suspend them, stating that these lawmakers have not expressed any remorse, rather they were justifying their actions. Congress MP and leader of the opposition Mallikarjun Kharge said the motion for suspension moved by the government had been in gross violation of the procedure, with the chair not even allowing his point of order. Congress and some opposition party MPs walked out and also forced adjournments in the Lok Sabha. However, there was an indication of the fault lines in the opposition camp. Trinamool MPs only walked out a short while after the Congress walkout, saying that not the opposition but 80 NDA MPs who should be suspended for blocking discussions. The entire day on 30th November saw both sides trading charges. Ice was broken at a meeting between Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla with floor leaders in the evening. The opposition leaders are understood to have agreed to participate in discussions starting December 1st. TRS remains determined to raise the demand for a law on minimum support prices by entering the well. The likely situation in Rajya Sabha was not clear. India lodges protest with Pakistan and Sri Lanka over attacks on fishing boats. India has lodged strong protests with Pakistan and Sri Lanka over incidences of Indian fishing boats being attacked by their maritime agencies. Indian Minister of Fisheries, Animal Husbandry and Dairying, Parshottam Rupala told Parliament that incidents of Indian fishing boats being attacked have been reported. India attaches highest priority to the safety and security of Indian fishermen. Rupala said the government has lodged its strong protest in all instances. India continues to reiterate to these governments to consider the issue of fishermen as a humanitarian and livelihood matter. To effectively address the issues relating to Indian fishermen, their safety and security between India and Sri Lanka, over the years, bilateral joint working group mechanism and meeting of the Honourable Ministers of Fisheries of India, Sri Lanka have been institutionalized. The last round of the JWG was held in December 2020, wherein both governments discussed the entire gamut of issues related to fishermen. The minister said the government is providing assistance to the fishermen under its schemes. India is implementing a flagship scheme, namely Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, with an investment of $2.67 billion for a period of 5 years with effect from the financial year 2020 to 21 to 2024 to 25 in all states and union territories. Financial support is provided to fishermen for communication or tracking and potential fishing zone devices, safety kits besides livelihood and nutritional supports as well as insurance. Noted Telugu lyricist Sirivenela Sitharama Sastry passes away. Telugu film industry is saddened at the passing away of noted Telugu lyricist and writer Sirivenela Sitharama Sastry. He died on November 30th after battling pneumonia in Secunderabad. He was 66 and is survived by his wife and 2 sons. Chembolu Sitharama Sastry, better known by his screen name Sirivenela Sitharama Sastry, was a lyricist and poet. Holding a record of writing lyrics for over 3,000 songs till 2020, Sitharama Sastry is known for his philosophical approach in his songs. Sastry had penned the most meaningful and soulful songs for the movie titled Sirivenela, which is one of the classics of Telugu cinema. Bollywood famous producer Sajid Nadiawala plans a grand premiere for Ahan Shetty and Tara Sutaria starrer film Tadap. Bollywood's famous producer Sajid Nadiawala's latest film Tadap is the talk of the town these days. With just a couple of days to go before its release, the film is all set to make a grand entry onto the silver screen. Tadap marks the debut of Ahan Shetty, son of Bollywood's macho man Sunil Shetty. Ahan is paired with young and gorgeous Tara Sutaria in the film. Touted as one of the most influential and successful producers of Bollywood, Sajid has made sure that his premiere is the biggest for Ahan and Tara. Produced by Sajid Nadiawala, co-produced by Fox Star Studios, directed by Milan Luthria and written by Rajat Arora, Tadap is scheduled to be released on December 3rd, 2021. That's all for this bulletin of Daily India Report. Thank you for watching.
And thank you very much for that, Ankita. Well, right now it's time to go to our functions and events taking place in and around Brisbane. And ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have for you in this segment. Don't forget that at 10 a.m. we have the travel updates with Tanvi Goyal of Oz India Travels, and in a very interesting segment, trying to find out what you can do and what you can't do. How would your holidays look like, coming Christmas? So, there are many anxious people out there, many booked, many have not booked, many waiting to see what might happen. Well, until that segment, it's goodbye from me.